Okay, so we've built a resume. We've learned how to network. We've learned other methods of trying to find a job. We've learned which ones to use and which ones not to use. We have learned how to interview, right? So the last piece is after you've been successful and all that sort of stuff, the offers are going to start flying off the table. And you're not going to know what to do. What should you be doing with all these offers? And so hopefully we're going to tell you today. So first off, how many people did the homework last week? 1, 2.
Part of it.
2.5.
Part of it.
Part of half. Two halves? What? Yes? Part? Okay, good part of it. So again, last week's homework, as you remember, was to type up an example of a thank you note for the follow-up for the interview, and to type up your reference statement and brainstorm a list of 5 references. Who has brainstormed a list of 5 references? That's pretty easy.
I couldn't think of that.
Okay, again, remember, if you're not here, we have the videotapes. It's on the videotape, so make sure you can borrow those tapes. We do have 2 of them, so we have 2 out at a time. Okay, you said you couldn't think of 5 people? Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's sad. You couldn't think of 5 people that you used to work with, used to work for, have, had relationships with from volunteer activities, or uncles, or...
Okay, I can think of 5.
I would hope so. I'm not allowed, there's probably 2 in this room. Okay,
Professor.
let's talk about negotiation. The key thing you all need to remember is formal negotiation does not begin until you have a formal offer. Okay, I know you want to start negotiation. I know you want to start asking about things like salary and benefits and all that sort of stuff. You want to start talking about it. What if I got this job? What if I did this? And you want to do that while you're on the interview. As I mentioned in the interviewing classes, I'm going to mention it again. You need to refrain from any negotiations while you're on the interview, because you're kind of giving away what your thought processes are, and you might be pricing your way one way or another as to prevent you from getting an offer. I mean, the goal here is to get an offer. The goal is to have this company say, I want you to work for me. And if you start negotiations early, that will not happen. Now, that does not mean that when you're sitting down talking to the HR rep or talking to some people, you can ask for information that they would normally give out to all candidates. You have a benefits package that I can review. Matter of fact, it's very important that you try to get some of the basic HR things because you want to figure out what you need to negotiate on, what things you don't need to negotiate on. If you're really, so for instance, when I came to American Scania, obviously vacation was important to me, as I'm sure it is important to all of you. Once I found out what my vacation was given to me at American Scania, was what I wanted. So why would I go in there and negotiate on something I'm already getting? Because if you have 10 things that are really important, and they've already given you 5 of them through their benefits packages or through what they're doing right away, you don't want to talk about a list of 10 things you need when you only really need a list of 5 things. Okay, focuses your effort and gives you a higher probability of getting what you want, because you're not asking for 10 things and only getting the 5 they already gave you, right? Compromise on they already gave you those 5 things, now all of a sudden they compromise, they met half your goals. So what's the negotiation process look like? Yes?
What do you consider a formal offer? Were they in writing or the...
Question is, what do I consider a formal offer?
Uh-huh.
I think it has to be in writing.
Okay.
So if someone calls you up on the phone and says to you, I'm going to give you, we would like you to work for our company, we want to have, we want to offer you, they're going to tell you what probably the salary is and what the position is. Again, I think we talked about last time, you're going to be very excited about that. Thank you very much. Obviously, I'd like to see this in writing. You're going to be able to fax it or FedEx it to me overnight, so I can sit down with my partner, I can sit down with my family, I can do blah, blah, blah. But you want to see that in writing. Yes?
What do you do on the, don't a lot of applications have a spot where it says what is your, what kind of salary you're looking for?
Yep.
What do you put in that sort of circumstance? Because you don't want to, obviously if you put it too high or too low, one you could be lowballing yourself, another one you could be running yourself or have a job.
So the question is, and I think we did talk about this last week or the week before, I can't remember, but the question is, on applications there are a place to put salary. And what should you put in there? I would recommend you don't put anything there right away. Or you put in negotiable. they'll always come back, most likely, if they don't come back, that's great. If they come back and say, wait a minute, we really need some numbers in here, then I think you put the range of what you've made, or I think you have to ask them, are you looking, sometimes looking for what were you making, not what are you looking for. Depends on what the question is.
I've seen a couple times where it says desired salary.
Desired salary, I'd put negotiable. Or I'd say, comparable to the duties and responsibilities that I'm going to be getting. If they ask you what you've had in the past, I'd keep it blank until they ask you to fill it in, and then I would fill in a range with your, I'd say, base and performance bonus. Performance bonus, not just bonus. Performance bonus between blah, 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 blah. I'll tell you, since we're talking about it, so I'll get offline. Every single time someone's asked me when they finally just pushed me, I said, look, I really want to know what you're looking for, okay? And I've told them, they've always come back with what I wanted. That's one less negotiation thing. I'd have no problem with that. If I ask for X and they give me X, am I unhappy? I literally don't go back and go, boy, if I ask for X plus Y, maybe I don't do that. If I really only want X, if I really thought about what I want, and I ask for X and I get X, that's one less thing to negotiate, because there's a bunch of other things you might want to negotiate. Things like travel, things like relocation, things like vacation. So that's one less thing to negotiate. Hey, look, I'm happy. So you really got to decide what your X is that you're happy with. And if they say yes to you, then you go, oh, boy, I really should ask for $1,000 more, so $3,000 more, because you'll drive yourself up the wall. Do you have a question, Mark?
Yeah, what happens if during the interview, your potential boss actually asks you, what would you like to be making?
The question is, if you're in the interview, your potential boss asks you what you'd like to make. I strongly don't believe that's going to happen, because most hiring managers don't want to talk about that sort of stuff. They want to leave it to the HR people, so the HR people are good or bad. But if they do ask that, I would go with the exact line I just mentioned. I want to make what's comparable to the requirements of this position. You might be making X over there, but you might have had just this much responsibilities. Now you're going to go for something that's a lot more responsible. You feel you should get a salary and bonus potential commensurate with what those new responsibilities are. I mean, for me, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm not going to be making what I make now. I'm going to get a salary that's commensurate with what my new responsibilities are, which is somewhat smaller, theoretically. In the business world, it's somewhat smaller. For some of you that have kids, it's not smaller. But. Okay, any other questions? The negotiation process. So it goes like this. It's ping pong. The company will make you an initial offer. You, after thinking about it for several days, will come up with an initial counter proposal. The company will come up with a compromise offer, most likely. Hopefully, sometimes they negotiate, sometimes they don't. We'll talk a little bit about that. You will come up with a compromise counter proposal, maybe, maybe not. And then there will be an acceptance or a rejection. Now, not all of you will go through this, okay? And not all of you will go through every step along the way. Okay, this is what some of the steps that sometimes happen. You need to go into this thinking, if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. That's why it's really important to wait until you have an offer, okay? I mean, again, if we're bringing back to the dating thing, you don't want to tell somebody who's coming up to you that you think is going to be asking you out on a date and say, boy, I'd love to go to dinner, right? And first they ask you, hey, you want to get together? Yes. Well, and I ask you, what do you want to do? Well, I'd love to go to dinner. So you don't want to start negotiating before you find out they really want you. Once they've said they wanted you, okay, they're making their desires known. Now all of a sudden, it's okay. Can we reach an agreement that we're both happy with? Okay? Start with the mindset that everything is negotiable. It is not. But you need to start off with the mindset that it is, and if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. Yes?
Is your counter offer also in writing? Or informally, verbally?
No, I don't know. We'll talk about what you should do. You should try to get a face-to-face meeting. But you won't. The only thing you'll do is the only thing you'll ever put in writing is when you finally get the final proposal, the final offer. You'll have to sign it that you accepted it and send it back. But you don't have to send. You don't have to do any of that stuff, sending things back and forth. So start off with, you need to be prepared. Okay, so you can do this today, theoretically. You need to know how much money you want to make. You need to know what benefits you want. You need to know what your must-haves are. Okay? Then you need to know what you might concede. So you really want 6 weeks vacation, but you'll live with 3. Okay? I really want to make $300,000 a year, but I'll settle for $25,000. I mean, you got to put down what you must have and what things you will concede. And again, you got to be able to say, okay, if I must have it, you should say I must have $30,000. They offer you $29,000. That's the highest they're going to go. You need to be able to walk away from that deal. You need to be able to say, look, this is not the deal for me. I must have $30,000. I must have these pieces. You need to consider acceptable alternatives. A lot of HR people are pretty creative when it comes to negotiation, but if not, you might come up with some creative things as well. So for instance, when I was negotiating with The Guardian, at Travelers I had a disability policy through Travelers because I had been there over 10 years. I think it was over 5 years that you got some sort of disability, group disability. But at Guardian, you had to be there, I think, 5 years again. And I said, well, look, I'm going from a company where I had disability to your company where I don't have disability. I don't even have a job. So I'm negotiating. I don't even have a job. I still have the benefits from Travelers for a little while longer. And I said, I really would like, is there a way that you could make an exception to your benefits program to let me in, to get me in for disability? And they said, no. But we said, well, you know what? I priced out how much a disability policy would cost from XYZ insurance company. It costs $1,000 a year. What do you say you pay for it? And they said, yes. So no one right to them. Worked for me. So everything's negotiable. Okay, and you need, again, you know what you must have, you know what alternatives are, and those alternatives might not be right in front of you. It's important if you've gotten into the company through a network, or some people in the company, you finally have been there, and you've talked to some people, use that networking contact to help you know about what possible salaries are out there, what potential salaries, what potential incentives. Are there bonus programs? I mean, American Scandi was always very generous with bonus programs, okay, down through all levels. Not all companies are like that. So you might be used to having a potential of several $1,000s. Company might not. You might want to make it up in terms of salary. Okay. So know what's reasonable to ask for at all the different levels. And go onto the internet and research what can be expected. Monster.com. I know some of you already use Monster.com and come up to me with salary negotiations saying, "Well, on Monster.com I can make such and such. Why aren't you paying me such and such?" So I know some of you guys are doing that. But if you're looking at want ads, you're looking on the internet, you're looking at doing some research, see what they're saying the range of the starting salary is. And again, if you feel you have enough experience, you should be at least at the midpoint of that range, right? If they say the range is between 20 and 40, and you've been doing the exact job they've asked for over 5 years, well, you definitely should start at 30. And if you think that you have so much experience, you should be at the higher end of the range. You should push for that after you get the offer. Right? Because now you can negotiate. Look, you're not getting someone off the streets. You're getting someone with 5 years of experience. I'm going to be able to pick this up much faster. I'm going to be able to add to your bottom line much quicker. So I should get compensated for that. So be prepared. What is negotiable? All this is negotiable. All these things are negotiable. Base salary is negotiable. Your bonus potential, for the most part, if there's a bonus program, is negotiable. Vacation is definitely negotiable. I know a lot of people have talked about when we were going to have jobs here, not wanting to leave this company because, wow, I have 4 weeks. I have 4 weeks of vacation. Why would I want to leave? 5 weeks of vacation. Why am I going to leave? Well, you know what? And I never told you this, but you can negotiate vacation. You go to the XYZ company, they want you badly enough. You can say, I want 5 weeks vacation. And some people that we brought in that were supposed to start with 2 or 3 weeks vacation got a week more because of that. Now, you guys don't know that. No one was adding up, Diane's vacation to find out she got a week more than she was supposed to have. But it's something that was negotiated.
Additionally, sometimes they will allow you to have another week vacation without pay, but sometimes having the time off is more important.
Yep.
And they will allow that.
Yep. You could negotiate. I want a week off without pay. You can definitely negotiate that. Professional association dues. So I'm an actuary. I've got a couple of professional associations. For the most part, again, it's good to know, do they pay those things? Those are kind of questions you can ask in the interview, just to find out. Because if you find out they pay for it, guess what? You don't have to negotiate. If you find out they don't pay for your tax dues and such, well, now you want to negotiate. You want to make sure it's in there. Negotiate benefits. Some benefits are negotiable, not a lot. Again, you can kind of do what I did with disability if it comes to that, if you can make that happen. Equipment. They pay for a cell phone. They pay for your laptop. They give you a laptop versus a desktop. Again, you could make the argument that if I have a laptop, I can do work when I'm know, if you're going to be commuting to New York City, or if you're commuting and doing work at home, you're telecommuting, get that down the to-do list. So if you're going to telecommute, you need a laptop to bring the computer home. Back up a couple of relocation expenses if you're going to be moving. Some of you are tied to the area, some of you are not tied to the area. Guardian had a very nice relocation package. They live in Florida. And I only moved from Newington, Connecticut down to Shelton, Connecticut. You should see what they paid. Crying out loud. They even gave me a $500 allowance on curtains. So, you know, I'll take it, you know. Matter of fact, I actually, this was pretty funny. I was living here in Shelton at my mother's house. She had a finished basement for 2 months. I said, Mom, Bill, they paid 2 months of rent to my mother for these guys. I wanted to give it to me. I was going to take it. So my mother got $1,000. I said, hey, Mom, there you go. Here's $1,000. Business travel, that's negotiable, right? How much travel you're going to do, et cetera, et cetera. And last, obviously, on the list is start dates. So again, it's always good to have a package of benefits. It's always good to have all the information that you can on any of this stuff, either from a person or from the internet. It could be on their own site, because obviously a lot of companies put information about what their benefits are, what their packages are, because they're trying to entice new employees to come and work for their company. It's always good to have that information in your back pocket so that you know what to ask for and what not to ask for. Yes, ma'am.
So everything on that list except the base salary and bonus potential can be brought up in the first interview?
No, that's not what I said.
That's what I'm asking.
I said there should be no negotiation in any interview until you get an offer.
Okay.
You could ask questions about things you could take away, basic things. I wouldn't bring up any of this stuff in the first interview. In the second interview, if there is not one, I might call the HR person and ask for, do you have a package of benefits? Do you have, some sort of materials I can take home with me to review? But you do not want to ask, I mean, if it's part of it's part of the position, you might want to ask some of the stuff. So let me back there. Business travel. If you're talking about a job where it's 100% travel, where do you travel to? I mean, you want to find out what they expect of you. Okay? In start date, you're going to know that. And so some of that stuff is, some of the stuff is discussion, but I'm not sure I'd be talking about professional, do you guys pay for professional association dues at that meeting? Because you don't have a job. It also sounds, a little presumptuous of you that you're digging that deep before you actually have a formal offer. Another question?
So if you're on the interview and the person's, explaining to you the job, the position, this is what you're doing, these are your tasks, blah, 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 blah.
You can bring it up then.
And then they ask you, well, do you have any questions for me? I mean, you're not supposed to ask, well, what's your base vacation? What type of benefits do you have?
So the question is, if they're talking to you about the job, and then they finally ask you at the end, do you have any questions?
Yeah, then they just ask you, do you have any questions?
And you ask the question, should you talk about base salary or should you talk about benefits? And I would strongly urge the answer is no. You should talk about job-related issues. So if they tell you your job has, you're going to be working with customers, blah, 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 you could ask, is there any travel? Right? Because that's part of the job. You should ask things that affect the job, things that affect the company. You shouldn't be asking things that affect you directly. Not until you have to have a formal offer. Again, the only exception is if the HR person talks to you at the end of the day or asks if you have any questions. You say, hey, look, do you have a pamphlet? Do you have any brochures about the company? Including a benefits package, etc., just so I can review it, so I don't have to ask any dumb questions later on. Yes, ma'am.
What if it's a smaller company, not a corporate company, you're talking to basically more like a person?
Yep, that's a good question. So what if you're talking to a small company? Again, I would stick away from talking about anything that's individual. If you're talking to the owner of the company because it's a small company, say, hey, they might not even have a page benefits package. Maybe say, what do you hand out to your employees for benefits? Is there some sort of employee handbook so I can kind of review something? If you get an employee handbook, that's even better. Usually some of the employee handbooks have that. And most small companies are starting to do that now just because of all the lawsuits and all things that are going on there. So you could ask. But I wouldn't be talking, but if they ask you, do you have any questions? I say, well, what is this position pay? What's my bonus potential?
You can ask at the end of the interview if they have do you have a package?
Yes.
That just gives me an overview of your company and stuff like that.
Overview the company, overview the benefits, what a normal employee would get if they started here, just so I can review it. I'm getting that from my other companies that I'm talking to. Sounds good, right?
The companies I'm very interested in.
No, I'm not sure I'm going that far. You want to get an offer. You want to get that offer first.
No, what I'm saying,
Right.
tell them, that, I'm asking for this from.
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay,
The
I see
job
what
that
you're
I'm very
saying.
interested in.
Right, I see what you're saying. I'm very interested in your company. I'd like to see what the benefit.
Around them.
Any other questions? Okay. Okay, so I started talking about this a little bit earlier, but when you receive an offer, and it's going to be oral, right? So it's going to be verbal, they're going to be on the phone with you, most likely. I'm sure they're not going to do it over email. You need to let the person know how pleased you are to receive an offer. You never answer on the spot yes or no, even if you're dying for this job, even if they give you everything you wanted and more. Even if they told you, this is it.
Can you say it sounds good, but?
Yes, you're very pleased. No, you're very pleased to receive an offer. You were very excited when you came to the company and you met with everybody. This seems like something that you're very interested in, and I really want to thank you for thinking so highly of me that you're giving me an offer. This is the time where if you have any basic questions unanswered, you want to bring them up. So if you didn't get a benefits package for some reason, you forgot to ask, you left without asking. If you have any high-level basic pieces that even have to do with some of the things on that last page, you might want them to tell you about them. You might want them to send them to you, email them to you. You have it, you have it on your website, blah, blah, whatever you could get. You want to get that sort of stuff. And then you want to ask for several days. Could be a week, could be 2 weeks. But you want to get for as much as you can. Okay, I have several days to get my questions answered, or to think it over, or to talk with a close relative, or to wait for some of the other. I've been interviewing with 2 or 3 other companies, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be getting an offer from them in the next 2 or 3 days. So I want to again showing them that, kind of telling them, look, I love your company. I got a bunch of other people interested in me. If I want to, think about, you might have to negotiate with them, right? You're offering me this, these guys are offering me this, I'm a free agent at the moment. So I might be getting more than one offer. And the most important thing you do after you get the offer and after you just hang up and jump up and down, after you do that, you need to call those other companies. You need to pick up the phone and call the other companies that you've either interviewed with or are close to interviewing with. Okay, they set up an interview with you for next week. You can call them up and say, look, I just got an offer. I still want to interview with your company. I'm really excited about your company. What's the probability we'll be able to turn this around in a short period of time? A, you want to let them know that someone else wants you, and B, you want to see if there's a possibility. You might decide if they say, look, it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks. We're not ready to make an offer. We're not ready to discuss it. Now you have to make a decision. If you really like company A, and want to just made you the offer, you might just cancel the interview, right? Because one thing, you might really like this company now. Now you all of a sudden you got a question. I like this company. I didn't know what this company was. Now I know what this company is. I like them a little bit more. Now what do I do? Because these guys want an answer by the end of next week. So now you're making it more complex. Okay? If this company you're not really excited about, you got an offer, but yeah, okay. Well, you might want to interview with them and see if you're really excited. And then you need to think about, will I walk away from this offer? Okay? We want to know by next Friday. You're interviewing another company next Thursday. They're not going to get back to you for 3 weeks. Will you walk away from this offer? Well, you might find out when you go to interview you screwed up. You didn't do well in the interview. You might find out that it wasn't as good as you thought it was. Okay? But the other thing is you need to be able to think about, do I walk away from an offer? In my opinion, it's the company you're going to be with for a while, hopefully, right? 2, 3 years, maybe more. You've been here 10 years, you've been here 6, 7 years. Okay, I'm looking around the room, a lot of 9 years, 8, 9 years. You want to make sure you get it right. Okay? It's not a lot of fun looking for a job right after you look for a job. So you want to make sure you get it right. That might mean walking away from an offer that you have in your hand. Any questions on this? Okay. It's recommended, and I agree with them, that when you negotiate, you try to do it in a meeting. It's always easier to see the face-to-face. It's always easier to read the body language. And even though for me, when I was negotiating with the Guardian, it was a train ride into New York City, I took it. I met face-to-face with the Senior Vice President of Human Resources. You might be meeting with someone on the HR level, someone that brought you in to talk to you. But I think it's really important to do face-to-face if you're going to negotiate at all. And again, some companies might tell you, look, this is it, take it or leave it. When you call them and say, hey, listen, I like to set up a meeting with you to talk over some issues, to answer some questions, and negotiate a few things. And I said, well, negotiation, wait, we don't negotiate. I got 400 people back here that want this job. Take it or leave it. Then you got to make a decision, whether you take it or leave it. But again, you don't know until you ask, and you assume everything is negotiable. So you're going to want to send an agenda, just like you send an agenda for all the other things. It's not something you're going to hand out. It's something you're going to have on your lap, which is going to be talking about all the points you want to bring up. And it shouldn't be infinite. Okay, I'm not sure how many of you folks are math people, but infinite means it doesn't end. Okay, because even though they've made you an offer, if you have 20 things you want to negotiate, I'm thinking, wow, this guy or gal might be a real pain in the ass to have work for me, right? They don't prioritize. Everything's an issue. You know, so again, everything's on the table, but I don't think you put everything on the table. Okay? You figure out which are the most important things. You prioritize what those important things are, and I would bring them up in that priority order. And also, this is very important. You don't want to negotiate 5 things and have them come back and answer those 5 things, and a week later come up with 2 or 3 new things. That will really piss them off. It will piss me off, and it will also another signal that, well, maybe we really don't want this person working for us. Think about all the issues you have on the table now. Get them on the table. See if you can get them resolved. It's recommended that you link each negotiable item to the position itself, not your personal situation. Sometimes that's easy to do, sometimes that's hard to do. Okay, you want more salary because the position, it reports to a senior vice president or reports to a vice president where, you know, before you were reporting to a director or a manager, and it's a lot more responsibility, so that's why you deserve more money. Or the position has a big influence on the bottom line of the company, so if the company's doing well, you should get a bonus that is comparable to that. Okay? Or the position, you know, has a range of this to this, you know, so I'm assuming the lower end of the range is for someone who's you hired off the streets, and the higher range is for someone who's been in the position for 5 to 6 years. And guess what? I've been in the position for 5 to 6 years, so I feel I deserve this much more money. Again, but certain things like vacation, etc., you know, the other thing you can negotiate is, well, I got an offer from another company, and they're offering me 4 weeks vacation. You know, is there something we can do? I know you're starting vacation is 2 weeks, but can we compromise at 3 weeks and I get an unpaid week for a week if I choose to do that? Because you know what, I work really hard, and I do need, you know, I come in, I give my all, I work 45 hours a week in a 40-hour week. I mean, I'm just pushing, and I really need my downtime to recover from all this hard work and effort that I'm giving your company. That was straight face.
I like to take 3 vacations a year.
Right. I said that with a straight face, right? I mean, so, you know, or you can say, I do have a child, and, I need some emergency time. You know, I don't want to be distracted from work. I want to be working and thinking about working all the time. And so, you know, if my child's sick and I got to figure out what I got to do with them, that's kind of distraction. I don't really want that. And the last piece, which is this is a really good bit of advice. Instead of asking, would you give me this salary increase, or would you increase my vacation? Would the company be willing? You want to depersonalize it. You don't want to be putting it on the person you're talking to, that even though they're representing the company, right? They know they're representing the company. They know that sometimes they're making decisions, sometimes they're going to pick up the phone and call up the hiring manager and go, well, you know, Diane wants 4 weeks instead of 3. What do you think? Yeah, she was good. Okay, maybe we should give her that one. You know, you're not going to get any answers on all these things. You're going to get no's, or I'll look into it. You're very rarely going to get yeses right in that negotiation meeting, because they always got to get it approved by somebody, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole game. Anyone bought a car lately? Okay. Has anyone ever, when you negotiated with them, have they ever said yes, or they always said, I need to go to my manager. Let me go to my manager. Well, it's a game, right? It's the game, and it's the same kind of game that's here as well. And unfortunately, on your side, you're not going to go, I'm going to go to my spouse. But, because now you look like you can't make a decision, right? Well, okay, I'll go talk to my husband or wife about that. That doesn't work. So again, you want to depersonalize and say, will the company be willing to? And that makes them consider things a little bit more than if you said, would you want to do that? If you're putting pressure on them.
Now, if they give you no's and yeses specifically, that means just say, they say no to everything, and then they say, now I need your answer.
Well, no, now the answer is, okay, so...
Now I have to think about it.
Now I definitely need to think about it. Now that I know my answer, now I have to go back and talk to my family about this. You know, again, I'm really excited about the offer. I'm a little disappointed that, you know, some of the things that I thought were very important to to me aren't going to be accepted. So that's why now I need a few more days to do
Because
that.
it's a chance they'll say no to something and then call you back when you're thinking about it and say, well, we decided we're going to do this.
There's a chance. Again, it depends on everything depends on circumstances. You know, if you have another offer on the table, it's okay, well, I want to make sure I get all the answers to my questions, so now I can compare this apples to apples with the other offer I have. You know, theoretically, they're giving you the best shot now. I mean, I can't believe they're going to come back and go and say no, and then 2 days later, well, we thought about it a little bit more. You know,
Wouldn't count it.
I wouldn't count it. I mean, unless you said no to it. Unless you finally said, "Look, listen, I came back, thank you very much for your offer, but I have to decline because the other offer was, gave me the salary that I asked for." And so that was, that was kind of the deciding factor. And they go, whoa, you might hear them go, well, wait a minute, let me check again. You might decide you want to let them check again. You might say to them, well, you know what, even if you come up to the salary, it's obvious that initially you didn't want to give it to me, so, we'll just call it a day.
Learn your lesson.
Well, I mean, sometimes that happens. Yes, sir.
What do you think is a good, when you're negotiating this and you start to negotiate salary, like I know you said, the price range or the base salary and all that kind of stuff, but what do you think would be a legitimate increase, a request for an increase from one position to another? Like, in other words, if you're making 30 grand and then you find a comparable job at another company, but you want to say, well, I need to be making $37,000. I mean, that's a pretty big increase when you're doing pretty much the same thing. I mean, should you just kind of keep it in a ballpark of trying to increase your salary by 3 to 5% or, 5 to...
So the question is, what's the ballpark you should ask for in terms of an increase for a comparable job? And there's no right answer. I've always been of the theory and opinion that the market drives your value, okay? I mean, Chipper Jones makes his $9 or $10 million a year as a baseball player, for those of you who don't know. For the Atlanta Braves, he's a Braves fan, so I'm trying to get his brain set here. He makes $9 million a year, $10 million a year, because compared to his peers, he is worth that much to the Braves, while someone else makes $100,000 a year because they're not worth as much in terms of star power, et cetera. So the market drives how much you're making. So if you worked here, I'll say this to some of the folks that have been working here 8, 9, 10 years, companies depress your salary the longer you worked here. I mean, they really have. I mean, I can't tell you the increase I received after I left Travelers for 13 years. And I only worked at Guardian for a couple years, and I got another increase going to my next company, I got another increase going to my next company, again, 2 years apart, because the market drives what you're making. So that's why you really try not to put in what you've made, okay? If you can get away with it, because you might be depressing what you can make if you tell them how much you were making. Yeah? For that company to say they started 40,000, you tell them you made 30,000, they go, well, maybe I can get marked for 35.
Do they have,
So should you, I'm sorry.
just a quick one, do they have the right to call your former
That's what I was
employer
going
and
to
say
say,
what
lie
they
about
make?
how much you were making.
I mean, you shouldn't lie on it because you can get fired for it. I mean, you can get fired. Again, you put it on your application, you can get fired for lying.
Okay, at American Standing, we've got a lot more in bonuses than when we are.
That's why I would do the range.
Okay, so if I do the highest, what I was making, the highest amount with American Standing, when we were hiring that year,
Yep.
whatever, this is what I mean,
Yep.
as opposed to what Prue is.
I say you put it in a range. You put it in the highest one, and maybe you put the medium in there. I mean, you got a range. You're not lying. You made between here and here over the last couple of years. I mean, I wouldn't include putting your retention bonuses in.
No.
Because last year, you had a really good year if you had retention bonuses, right? But you could price yourself out of the marketplace, right? If you add another, I can't remember what everyone got, if you add another 5 or another 10 here or there, all of a sudden, well, I can't afford this person. I'm not even going to make them an offer. But people have left here and they've gotten good raises. They have. People left any company they've stayed for a long period of time. Why? Because, and obviously American Standing is a really bad example because for 2 years we got no raises whatsoever. But even if you got the normal raise of 3%, 3% is kind of an inflation type raise, but the market might be paying a lot more for what your skill sets are. So there is no specific answer. Figure out what you want. Worst case scenario is they tell you no. Conversation approach. Okay, so when you're at this meeting, you're in this negotiation meeting, again, even though you have an offer, you're still on. Okay, you're still on. It's still like an interview. Maybe even a little bit more important than an interview because you're negotiating your future, and because you need to come up with a professional approach. I would definitely wear a suit if you went to the interview in a suit. I would definitely go into as a formalized business meeting. I know it's going to be hard for you, David, but I'm going to try to pull that off. Maintain a positive attitude. Again, you're really excited about being part of this company. You want this to be a win-win negotiation. You're not looking to demand things. You're asking a lot of questions. You're saying, here's some issues that I might have. Does the company have flexibility in? Okay, does the company have flexibility in benefits? The response is going to be, well, which benefits in particular? You're going to say something like, well, types of HMOs, you have. They're going to say, well, we have these 3 HMOs. Oh, I didn't realize you had those. Okay, that one fits. Again, you want to only negotiate things that you hopefully want. I mean, if they already have the HMO that you're looking for, that would be a silly thing to negotiate or even bring up. But you want to question, you don't want to demand, I need $20,000 or I'm walking away. I think that would be kind of silly. Okay, you want to add, are you flexible in your base salary? Maybe you could even say to them, I saw in your job description that your range was from here to here. Are you flexible in your base salary? The answer has to be yes. No, we're set on 20,000. That's all we're going to give you. That wouldn't make a lot of sense. Keep the atmosphere friendly because you may be working with a person. Not sure, they might set you up with the HR person. They might set you up with your potential boss. Small company is going to be your potential boss. Bigger company is most likely going to be the HR person. Again, look for a win-win scenario. See if you can, they can't afford to give you such and such, but maybe if they give you a sign-on bonus of a couple $1,000s, they could, we don't have a relocation package. Even though you're going to move to New Jersey, but maybe you can have a sign-on bonus of $2,000 that might help defray the cost of the moving van that you're going to need. People have done that. These guys have done. These guys know what's going on. So I mean, they're not. You say something like this, they're not going to go, "Oh my God, I've never heard of this before." But again, you're thinking about relocating somewhere. You will not know unless you ask. It doesn't hurt to be able to say, "Hey, I'm looking for this, that, or the other thing. It's going to cost me money to move. I just like to be kept whole." And assess your strengths in relation to the marketplace. Your position is obviously enhanced if there's a low supply of you or if there's a high demand of you. So obviously, the IT people right before Y2K were in pretty good shape, right? People were dying to find IT people. Their position was enhanced. There was high demand. There was low supply. And these guys are moving around left and right. Unfortunately for them now, it's the exact opposite. Because India's out there undermining them 50 cents or 30 cents on the dollar. And a lot of things are being outsourced over to India. So for folks on the IT side, their position is not enhanced compared to the marketplace. And you got to look at, again, what you guys are doing. So imaging, distribution, cash control people, you guys have skills that a lot of people are now starting to index and image things and look at things electronically. Can you do it for things outside of insurance? The answer is yes. And here, by the way, I've learned two sets of systems. I've learned all these different types of doc type, blah, blah, blah. There might be areas that say, we need that. We need that more than just a normal XYZ person who we have to train from scratch. Okay? Broker services people. Okay? There's, again, that's a lot of that is based on insurance industry, but is there other things that you could carry over for compliance or for that type of piece? The answer is yes. Okay, negotiation points. You need to, that's why it's important to do it face-to-face instead of over the phone, but you need to be sensitive to the appropriate time to stop negotiating. Can't do it ad nauseum. This meeting should not go on for 4 hours. Matter of fact, this meeting should probably go on for, definitely less than an hour, hopefully half an hour and 45 minutes. You get your 4 or 5 points across that you want. They say yes, no, or they say, let me think about it, let me get back to you. What are you really looking for? What is your need? What is your true need? These are what you want to explain to them. And hopefully you're out of there in a short period of time. Again, you got to ask yourself the question, are you willing to turn down this offer? And I can't answer that question for you. You're the only person, you or your family are the only person who can answer that question. If you have a spouse that might say, look, we could live on my salary for another 4 more months. If you're not really happy with this position, I don't want you to take this position. Don't push too hard unless you're willing to walk away. Obviously, if you don't really care about this position as much, you can push. Yeah, I want 5,000 more a year. I'm not, this is what I really want. Or we're not going to give it to you. Okay, well, you're willing to walk away. And some companies do not negotiate. So you forget this whole entire lesson for some companies. Okay, again, they just don't negotiate. They decide this is what we're paying, this is what it is. We think. Matter of fact, I'll give you a really great example. And it's really not negotiation, but it's kind of a negotiation. So my wife's practice is looking to hire another doctor, and the lead and Leah is responsible for finding this new person. The lead doctor, the business partner, the managing doctor, is pretty frugal with giving out money. Just because that's his job, is to try to make sure he's pinching every penny to get as much profit so that they can spread it out among the partners. And so they came up with a starting salary of X. And so she's been working with headhunters, and she's been working with people from residency programs to try to find new doctors that are coming out of residency to see if they would want to start an OBGYN program. And so they asked the first question, right? What's your starting salary? And so she would say X. And every time she said X, she got no resumes. They call them CVs. She got no calls back. And she got no anything. Why? Because the marketplace says such and such. So if they continue to say we're not going to negotiate, or they continue to say we're going to keep at this X price, they will not get a new doctor. Now luckily they went back and they decided there's going to be X plus Y, and since they got X plus Y, they decided that about a week ago she has 4 interviews, people coming in over the next 2 weeks. Okay, because they were too low. So some companies won't negotiate. Some companies, based on that, will not get people coming into their positions. But some companies who won't negotiate with IT people right now will be in pretty good shape because there's a ton of IT people out there at the lower rates. Okay, so the more you know, the better it's going to help you in negotiations. Post-negotiation, you want to get that final offer in writing. Again, you're either going to send a letter of acceptance or you're going to sign the letter of offer in writing. If you do send a letter of acceptance, again, you want to reinforce your excitement of the offer, your enthusiasm to start the work, and any statement of agreed upon changes to the original offer letter. Okay, because hopefully they put all of that information in writing and you don't have to worry about it. But if they did not, you want to make sure you get that. And I also recommend if you decide to turn them down, that you do send a letter of non-acceptance. You keep it very professional and pleasant, because again, it might be someone you're going to future network with one way or the other. And you always want to leave on a fairly decent professional note. And they understand that because they've turned down people, and now you're turning them down. So someone asked you on a date and you said no. That happens. Multiple offers. How many people are going to get multiple offers? Only 1? 2? Okay. Man, you guys, multiple offers, they're fun. They're also very, very confusing, right? Because they're really, really close. And boy, I like both companies. I like the people I met at this company. So multiple offers are not sometimes as easy as you think they are. But what we would recommend is select the company you prefer and negotiate the best deal with them first. Okay, so you try to put off company number 2 for a while. You're not going to be able to put them off indefinitely, right? But you try to put them off as best as you can. If the offer is made by your second favorite company, again, you want to call the other company about the status. Okay, I got to call you. You want to tell them I got an offer. And I think I told you the story that with the Guardian deal, I did get an offer from a second company, a second less favorable company, and I called back Guardian to tell them I did get an offer from another company. I didn't tell them who it was or what it was even for. It was for something completely different. And lo and behold, within, I think, 24 hours, 48 hours, I got an offer. Wow, shocking. So they finally got off their ass and made it. You definitely want to ask, if an offer is made by the second favorite company, you want to definitely ask them for more time. You might want to ask them for weeks instead of days, okay? I can really use 2 weeks to, because I'm still in the middle of interviewing and I made commitments. You would say the last bullet point here underneath that, which is I've agreed to complete interviews with another company because I have an obligation to the person I network with, because I was referred to them by a very important contact, et cetera, so I really feel like I got to do this. And that meeting's not going to be for another week and a half. It's also important, it's also fun to negotiate on questions that may take them time to research, especially if it's your second favorite company. Get them researching it right now. It's going to take you 2 weeks to get back to you on them. Okay, I understand that. And obviously, that's about things, but that'll be fine. You negotiate those things, or you research those pieces. And again, last but not least, you may have to make a decision to accept or reject. The company's going to put pressure on you to make a decision, because until you make a decision, they have a position that's open, they have an empty seat that's not being filled, and they need someone to do that work. So you might have to make a decision. And we all talked a little bit about the moral and ethical issues of saying yes and then coming back and saying no, we're not going to get into that one again. But your reputation is all you have. So I would caution you to utilize your reputation strongly. So here's your homework. Get a job. You haven't done any of the other homework. You better do this one, pals. I'm telling you right now. Do we need next week? Originally, we were going to have 15 weeks. We're going to have a Q&A session. Is there any questions we haven't answered today? Is there any questions we haven't answered in the past? I'm seeing no yeses, so I'm
What's the
assuming...
market like out there right now for, I mean,
What's the market like out there right now?
yeah, I mean, in financial kind of businesses, I mean,
I think I passed out something several weeks ago that says the market's picking up. And again, it depends on what numbers you check, but it seems like it's picking up in Connecticut. I think, for the most part, you folks losing your job at this time of the year is a blessing. Because you're most likely not going to get a job in 2004. But all the new budgets happened in 2005. So some of you are going to make the decision to sit around for 2 months, or depending on your time period, and let the holidays go by before you actually start doing anything. And I think that'd be very, very silly. You want to start getting your networking out. You want to start talking to people so that when that budget comes out on January 2nd, that it was from here to here, or they couldn't fill those positions in 2004 because it wasn't their budget, but it was in their budget for 2005. Now's the time you want to be really ready to be able to jump on those. But I know since none of you have really followed my advice of actually keeping up with the homework, you might not follow that advice either. But it is by far the best time of the year, unless you're looking to be a school teacher. Usually, you got to try to find a job in the springtime for the next fall. But for most of you, this is the best time. So you might lose your jobs end of October, beginning of November. Hopefully by then all your resumes are signed, sealed, and delivered. You have all your networking scripts all set and done. You're ready to pick up the phone and make some telephone calls. And it's going to take you several weeks to ramp up, and you might start interviewing probably in early January. There's not going to be any interviews in December, folks. You'll be lucky to get networking meetings in December, but there's not going to be any interviews.
What happens if they interview you in December or in November, but they say, like, I was in a scenario where I was interviewed in November, and I said, after it was pretty much offered to me, I said, well, they asked me when I wanted to start, and I said, can I start January 15th or whatever? They're like, well, sure, that worked out perfect for them. So, I mean, if you go on these interviews, say in October or November, and depending on who's ever situation, could you even say then?
You can negotiate start date. After you get an offer, you can always negotiate start date. Not before you get an offer. You don't go in there saying, well, by the way, I just want to goof off till January 15th. I'm a really hard worker, but not right now. I don't think you do that. But, you never know. I mean, they might want you to start right away. But I think you get your ducks lined up. I mean, we've been doing this now for 4 months. This is up with the 14th class, so we're the fourth month of doing this. And some of you are much farther ahead than others. And I know who some of you are because I met with a bunch of you on a bunch of different things. I know who I haven't met with at all, but I know who's behind. And that's okay. I mean, you're not losing your job tomorrow. But you are losing it for some of you in 6 weeks, and for some of you in 10 weeks, 10, 11 weeks, 12 weeks. You need to be ready. Because you want to hit the ground running. You certainly want to hit the ground running. And again, it's a good time. You're not going to get interviews in December, but you might get some networking meetings in December, especially if it's close friends. I strongly will urge you again. I've stopped giving that homework assignment for the last 2 or 3 weeks, that you start networking with the people in this room. At a minimum. And then the people that work in operations next. Because all of you guys have contacts for everybody else. And you're not utilizing that. And you can practice your questions. And you can practice how it sounds before you go out to the first real networking meeting that you have with someone who you really want to impress, because you really, feel that they have some contacts for you that are going to help you find that next job. But hopefully you've, listeners, is there any other questions?
Harold, what is the best publication to find out as far as industry trends and
I don't have an answer about best publication. I would go on the internet on some of those websites that I talked about. I talked about what's, different jobs, different levels of what things are going on. But I don't think there's just one publication to find out what's best. Again, you guys, I know a lot of you folks are finish work early and then you leave. I'd recommend when you finish work early that you jump on the internet and you start surfing, some of the local, New Haven Registers and Connecticut Posts and see what's out there. See what's going on. See what's going on. Look at the business pages to see who got a big new contract, what's going on with Subway. I still want to find out what's going on with Subway. They're hiring all the time. Yes?
well, that was kind of my question next, as far as if you're targeting an individual company, how can you find out about how they are doing financially? And
we talked about,
it's nice
talked
if
about
you
that.
see it in the paper, but
I mean, again, some of them are publicly traded companies. You can get information from the SEC through the website. SEC has a website. What's that? Morningstar? So you can do some research on that way. Again, just keeping up with the local papers or finding someone who works for that company that might be able to bring home some company-specific information, whether it be an annual report. Of course, annual reports are quite boring, so you want to skim through some of the high-level pages to see what things are going on. I wouldn't be looking at all the numbers in the back unless you're a real mathematical nerd. Even I don't do that. I'm a mathematical nerd. Any other questions? Was today worth it?
yeah.
Was the 14 weeks worth it? Good. As you know, we will be working to get everyone's name and email address and address before we all leave, and make sure we pass it out to everybody for not just the social aspect of keeping up with your peers, but also for the networking aspect. I mean, that so-and-so knew somebody in such and such a company, but unless you know how to get a hold of them, it's not really going to help you. So, and obviously my name and number is going to be on there as well, and except for taking an exam or two and trying to get into a program to teach, I'm not going to have a lot to do except change diapers. So, if you guys want to call me up and have me review your resume one more time, as long as you don't mind duty on your resume, I'll be more than happy to do that. But you'll be traveling to me. I'm not traveling to you. So, good luck. I'm sure you all do well. And thank you very much for coming. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you.